So we want to see, is this just a lone text? And I ask, what should we do with this text? Just put it in the back of our brain? Dismiss it and say, well, that's interesting, that's for some? Or is it really for us? Well, one of the things we always want to do is look at the context when this was spoken. We know it's on the night before he was going to die. He's attending to some very serious things. And he makes this declaration. This text is referred to, is part of what is, the larger was referred to as the farewell discourse. That conversation at the Last Supper. This is Jesus' final words. So the question we must ask, is this a lone text, a lone concept, or does he have more to say about this? Or is it just a random thought, kind of just threw it out there and let's see if anybody grabs it? Or is this something maybe we should look at and grab onto? So what we want to do is we want to look at the larger context. Well, is it a random thought? No. Actually, he talks about this very thing again. Throughout this farewell discourse. This isn't just a solitary, random thought he brought up. He's actually going to repeat it. Now, we have to remember that to the Hebrew mind, in that day and age, when a Jew repeats himself, he is saying, listen. Okay? Now, in America, when we want people to listen, we yell louder. Okay? We kind of do Jerry Springer on people. Not the Hebrew mind. The Hebrew mind says you repeat it. You say it over and over. And by saying it over and over, you're saying this is important. Well, we know it's rather important. The tip-off is when he says, I tell you the truth. And that's a pretty good tip-off. But let's go a little bit farther and see if there's any more in this larger story. Well, interestingly, John 15, verse 7 through 8. He's gotten off to John 14. Actually, 2/3 is going to be something other than John 14. But in John 15, verse 7 and 8, he says, if you remain in me, and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be given to you. This is a follow-up to what we heard before, right? Ask in my name, and it will be given to you. So he's saying it again. This is to my Father's glory, that you may bear much fruit, showing yourself to be my disciples. So we have the first account in chapter 14. And then we have it being repeated again by Jesus in another manifestation of it. If we go to John 16, it comes up again. And specifically, when you hear things repeated 3 times, the antenna should be way up. I mean, way, way up. Listen. That's why, like I said before, like in Luke 15, you have the story of the 3 lost. The lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. It's like, pay attention. The parable of the sower. 3 kinds of soil, 4 kinds of soil. So the idea is, you need to listen to this. I'm trying to make a point. So we come to John 16, verse 23 and 24. So some time has passed. And Jesus says, in that day, you will no longer ask me anything. Here it comes again. He starts with, I tell you the truth. 2 more stories, and he ends with, I tell you the truth. This is not a random thought. This is a specific point he wants to make to us, to you and me, to Pete and the guys. I tell you the truth. My Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. Until now, you have not asked for anything in my name. Ask and you will receive, and your joy will be complete. Are you following along here? Are you tracking with me? So 3 times in this night before he is betrayed, of all the things he can talk about, he says 3 times, if you're in line with me, I will do what I say. In this final reiteration of this awesome promise, this is a promise of whatever you ask. He said it 3 times, whatever you ask, I'll give it to you. Whatever you ask, whatever you ask. He states, until now you have not asked anything in my name. Well, according to this text, this promise appears to be dependent upon something. The mere fact that we say, I want this, is not a guarantee we're going to get it. We okay with that? So what is asking? The question is, it says, our asking in His name is a requirement. So the question, the logical question becomes, so what is asking in His name? Is it putting a rubber stamp on it, putting a Jesus stamp on it, and that gets it done? Lord Jesus, I want a Ferrari in your name. I don't think so. But my question is, can we figure out an answer to this? In what Jesus has told us, is there an answer? Is there a way to work this out? The question is, in the three texts I talked about, are there any conditions applied to this promise? Well, luckily, again, we'll go back to John 15:7. There's a condition. He says, the if is a conditional statement. You know, if. You can go to the movies if you clean your room. You can have the car if you mow the lawn. Yeah, I think you understand what I'm talking about. So the question I'm asking is, how do we get the whatever? Well, if you look at John 15:7, it says, if you remain in me, and then what does it say? And my words remain in you. Whose words? His. Not our bright ideas. It's got to be with Him. Ask whatever you want, and it will be given to you. So the asking is really dependent on His wishes, isn't it? And us being in line with His wishes. So here we go again. I've been hammering on this or beating on it. That if you remain in me, and my words remain in you, we see that obedience thing coming up again, don't we? If you love me, you'll do what I say. So my question is, the condition is, His words remaining in us. And isn't that what the Great Commission is? What do we do? Go out and baptize, teaching them to obey everything I've told you. It all comes together. It's remarkable how it fits together. So what is the result of asking in His name? Well, at the end of John 16, if we look at those three in the context of this is a point to be made by using repetition, it says your joy will be made complete. That through this asking in His name, through this having the Word dwelling in our heart, it will complete our joy. Why will we have joy? Why will we have joy if we look at it that way? It's very simple. We will have become living witnesses to the faithfulness of His Word, won't we? What does that do when you know, yes, what He says I can bank on? Yes, His Word is true. I bet most of you, gamblers here, if you went to Vegas and you knew what was coming up on the roulette wheel, guaranteed, put a lot down on it. Well, when we start knowing that God is faithful, He will provide, creates joy. It completes our joy. Now, the word that is used there is karat. I'm trying to picture it, which means joy, gladness. You see, we have joy because we've stepped out in faith on nothing other than His promise, in accordance with His will and His word, and He shows up. And you say, well, Dave, you're making this stuff up. Well, are there any examples that happened? Luckily, there are. There is one. And a perfect example of this is Luke 10, verse 16 through 17.